Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, good morning, my friends. It is your old buddy Luke Clayton, and my good buddy Mr. Larry Weissoon is standing by, and we have a topic that I think all of you are going to really enjoy. We're going to talk about the rut that's about to kick off on the deer for deer. Larry, thank you for being with us.
Look, I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you once again, as we have been for so many years now. Thankfully, we're brought to you by Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, that makes the Raging Hunter handguns I love to shoot. Stealth Vision, which is sold and headquartered there out of Crockett, Texas. VINEYARDMAX, that does the deer bait that works really well on axis deer as well, too.
Yep.
And DSC as well. And I want to remind people that come July 17th through the 19th at the Gaylord Texan there in Grapevine, Texas, we'll have our kind of a mini convention as far as CSC is concerned. So I want to invite everybody for that. We're calling it the Summer Gala kind of thing. And I know that Mossberg, too, is made here in Texas. And I've got a couple of those Mossberg rifles and the Taurus pistols and the Hornady and all that other kind of stuff that I'm anxious to go back out and try some axis deer, just as you mentioned that we're talking about. We are approaching that rut, or the peak of the rut, I guess I should say, because axis deer actually breed year-round.
Larry, I bet a lot of our friends are saying, what is old Luke talking about, the rut? Yeah, I left that hanging, and I bet just to raise a few eyebrows. But, yeah, folks,
absolutely.
when I'm talking about the rut, the axis deer, like Larry says, I've hunted them up through for many years off and on, but they can breed year-round for sure. But the peak, for at least in this part of the world, middle of May, June, they become active. Those old bulls begin roaring. I mean, it's game on. Larry, I hate to make I'll tell you though, I hate to make the statement in a way. Now, you know how much I love to hunt whitetail. I mean, I grew up like you. Well, whitetail was a magic animal, and it still is. It is. But I'll tell you what, those spotted deer packing all that, they're a bit bigger than whitetail. They've got big antlers. There's a lot to be said about an axis deer. I've hunted free-ranging ones. Honestly, all the axis that I've killed I haven't killed that many, but the ones I've hunted have been free ranging. And across down around Barney, which is a suburb of San Antonio, Larry, the last one I shot was right on the edge of Barney, the municipal boundary there. A friend of mine had about 20 acres, and this had been 6 or 8 years ago. There were tons of deer right there in that area, free ranging.
That axis deer, I'll tell you what, they were brought in, of course, they're originally from India, and there they were also called the chittal, Chittal deer. And for the most part, they were brought initially into Texas back in about the late 1920s, somewhere 1930s. Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, who was an ace during World War I, had a place there just south of Kerrville, and he was one of the first guys to bring in a high fence the axis deer. And of course, over the years, they've pretty much spread all over the state of Texas.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me when somebody says, I live out in the Trans-Pecos and I saw an axe. Yeah, you probably did, or the Panhandle. But there's a tremendous population of free-range wild axis deer scattered throughout, primarily through the hill country. And So opportunities exist there to hunt those things. Of course, year round, you need a hunting license and you need permission of the landowner to hunt them. But they're they're also competitive, I should say, with our native white-tailed deer. And so for that reason, it kind of should be that it behooves everybody that's ever been interested in possibly shooting an axis deer to go out and shoot one. If nothing else, try to help save some of the white-tailed deer habitat. Because the thing about axis deer is those things can survive on seem like next to nothing in terms of vegetation. They'll eat browse while it's available. They'll eat weeds while they're available. They'll eat grass when nothing else is available, and even dried leaves, and they seem to do good on all those things.
I never really knew they were that hardy, Larry. But I did know that they were grazers too, more so than a whitetail, right? I mean, a whitetail, I understand, will graze, but primarily, they like the little shrubs and weeds and things like that. But axis, I guess, could survive on a just grass if he had to, right?
They really can. And whitetail deer, their digestive system is set up to where they really, once those grasses, when they're really first coming up, they'll eat some of the green grass, and occasionally they'll eat seed heads, things like that. But their system really isn't set up for a grazing like a cow, but that axis deer, yeah, they have got the ability to convert almost anything into energy and to stay fat. And with them breeding year-round, like I said, the peak of that breeding season is coming up now through about the first week of July, with the middle part of June probably being the total, the peak of it. And what's interesting about all that, too, we need to mention, those axis deer, particularly the bucks, become very, very vocal during that time frame. And kind of not a shrill, but kind of a coarse whistle roar that they make. And if you're out, you can, in their axis deer in the area this time of the year, you're going to hear them because they'll be pretty active doing those roars and things like that. The bucks will early in the morning, middle of the day, late in the evening, and sometimes even at night.
They do. Our friend Mike Ford, Mike was on one of my other radio show, public radio show recently. Mike is from his whole family from Red River County up northeast Texas, where I was raised, and he's got several hundred acres high fenced in the woods, typical northeast Texas timber country. And he started out with axis years back, and he's got quite a herd of those things. But you could be around there, spend the night in one of Mike's cabins, or stay up there overnight. And this time of the year, it sounds like a zoo out there. I mean, those things are highly vocal. I don't know. The ones, like I say, the ones I've killed, there was no real. One of them I just killed down on out of Campwood. I was hunting with Larry Large. He was on a 2,000 acre lease, and I'll tell you, there was elk, there was aoudad, there was everything you can imagine, and a lot of axis deer. The first one I killed years ago, I was up in almost like a kid's treehouse on this big old oak that was growing on the banks of that, whatever that river was. And I don't think it was the Frio. I think it was a feeder creek to the Frio.
Yes, sir.
But it was a live creek. I never will forget. We got down there midday, and Larry said, I said, get up. I get out there about 3. He said, oh, no. He said, just get up in that stand and set. And those deer will be coming out to water, middle of the day. I shot one about 1:30 that day, never will forget.
Right.
Come into the edge of that creek, that live creek. But yeah, I love to hunt them. The fact is, a lot of deer leases throughout Texas are also, whitetail leases. That's what people lease it for, that and turkey and maybe mule deer. But a lot of them, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of them also do double duty with these axis deer, and that's kind of a plus. They're beautiful. I don't guess there's a more beautiful deer, in my opinion, than those spots on that axis deer. And the meat, Larry, you and I have talked about this a whole lot, and I know it's almost taboo to say this, but for a lot of people, that's axis meat. That's really, really good. I'm not sure. As a matter of fact, I think I can take some venison, whitetail backstrap, the way chicken fry it, and fry some axis backstrap right next to it. I don't think, assuming it's good quality meat, and it would be, I don't think people could tell the difference, Larry.
There may be some people that can, but I tend to agree with you. And we kind of talked before we got around the campfire here about, years ago when I was growing up, we hunted deer and we took deer and we ate deer. But to me, I don't ever recall those deer not having some kind of gamey flavor. Now, over the years, I have not changed anything how I did anything with the venison that I get. And these days, it is absolutely delicious. And in a way, it reminded me of Axis, the first Axis deer I had, because it was very mild flavor and, wasn't at all gamey. And you're right. These days, particularly with the deer that we have, whitetail deer being on good diets pretty much year round, and I strongly suspect that was probably a big part of it. It's hard to taste the difference, and I cannot do it, to be honest with you. But the beauty of it is, if you didn't get enough deer meat during the hunting seasons that we had this fall, you can go hunt Axis deer right now. And not only do you end up with some really good eating, you end up with a beautiful hide. If you kill a big old buck, it makes a fabulous mount, or just, putting the antlers up on the wall. And then, too, on some of the Axis deer that I've taken in the past that were not real big, I've used those antlers for knife handles. So there's all kinds of great uses for an Axis deer as far as I'm concerned.
For sure, Larry. Well, I thought, of course, before our campfire began burning this week, you and I, we discussed talking about Axis, and the rut is on right now, friends. I mean,
yes, sir.
So two places I don't know that I know, they're both commercial. Mike Ford, I would imagine he's got a lot of them. Rio Rojo Rancho up in Red River County. Rio Rojo Rancho is the name of his place. I'm sure you can Google that or website find it. And then Mark Billette down around Groveton, I think, has got a pretty good herd of Axis down there. And that is EastTexasExotics.com. So there's a couple of places, but who knows? Maybe you're on a lease with a lot of them. Larry, thanks for talking about something a little bit different with me this week. But it's the rut is on, so now's the time to go hunting. And you and I, we got a catfishing trip planned real soon, but we're going to be right back here with everybody next week. We may be talking catfish. Who knows?
Yeah, it's probably going to be time too.
Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Luke, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34-millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is level because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Folks, I want to introduce you to VINEYARDMAX. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weissoon, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, VINEYARDMAX has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, I want to tell you about an awesome camping destination, Wind Point Park on Lake Tawakoni. It's over on the far east side, kind of the northeast side of the lake. It's a pristine park. You can go there and view, I think they estimated a couple of hundred deer on that couple of hundred acres there. Cabins, beautiful RV park, fishing piers, docks. It's got everything you'd want in an outdoor destination. Check them out online at windpointparktx.com. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro, catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, friends, it is now time for us to saddle up and head up to beautiful Lake Texoma, up on the Texas-Oklahoma border, about an hour north of Dallas. And Mr. Bill Carey is not a stranger to Catfish Radio. He's with us often, and he does a good job of keeping us tuned in on the striper fishing. And that's what we're going to talk about. Bill, you're up there on the docks this morning. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Well, good morning, Luke, and all y'all out in radio land.
Well, good morning to you, Bill. And it is, I know a couple of weeks ago there was some off-colored water. I talked to some other folks up there, friends of mine, and you, and the off-colored water, y'all were chasing a mud line around, but things have stabilized. And May, really, as you've said many times, it is prime time for catching striped bass up at Lake Texoma on topwaters. And y'all have been doing just that. Thought it'd be fun to kind of let you explain. You know, people say, okay, I'm going to book a trip and go catch them on topwaters. Well, that's very likely what's going to happen right now if they get in a boat with one of your guides. But don't expect to be catch every day to be in topwater action for 5 hours. A lot of times that's on a bright day, especially, that's kind of an early morning thing, right?
Oh, yes, sir, it is. You know, depending on cloud cover, that's the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
We were fishing. We were catching these fish on shallow banks, as you know how I tell the people. And the bait moves in early in the morning, and then the fish follow. As soon as that sun gets up, that water warms up, those fish leave. So then we switch over to jigs and slabs. But if you bring me cloud cover or we got some threatening rain, oh, baby, they'll stay in there all day. And, man, when you get to throw topwaters all day, that is pure heaven.
It's as good as fishing gets. And, you know, we Larry Weissoon and Jeff Rice and I, the three musketeers that do the TV show, A Sportsman's Life, we're going to be up there with you like in a matter of days. So we'll have a lot to talk about when we get back. We're going to film a show for A Sportsman's Life with you. Jeff is going to be there. He's our film guru. He actually produces the show. But, you know, Bill, I remember last May, I think it was May, a little bit earlier than this, last May, we were up there, the three of us, Larry Weissoon and Jeff and I, with you, and we were with your son Chris, been guiding for 40-something years. Chris was the ramrod that day, and we got in the early morning bite. And what's amazing to me, it's knowing the spots. You know, if you don't know the spots, you may not catch a topwater fish. I'm being honest about this. If you know the areas that they frequent, Chris went to one spot, shut the boat down, and just sat there a minute and just looked. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't see any schooling action. There's nothing happening, you know, to myself, I'm thinking. But I knew Chris, and I fished with him enough. I knew what the program was. And they said, get them out there, boys. You know, so we started big pencil poppers. We were just, you know, we were frothing the top of the water. And then all of a sudden, bam, bam, bam. Those rogue stripers, they were there. They just weren't above the water line. They were feeding subsurface. And so had we not known that was a prime spot, I mean, I would have never stopped there. You know, I know most people would. So that's the key, Bill. I know that's the key, is knowing the patterns, right? I mean, you got to know the patterns.
Yeah, and you know, I went fishing yesterday with some friends, and I told them, the old man, me, has a saying, no heroes, no zeros. Everybody works together. All my guides share information. So we're all going to be spread out 6, 7, 8 boats a day, 10 or 11 on Saturdays, and we're going to help each other find these fish. But you are right. These fish are not just summertime schooling fish.
No.
This is blind casting.
Yep, it is. In other words, there's no indication. There's no gulls diving. Oh, there may be some egrets around or whatever, you know, or you know, some birds may be around, but it's not that frantic diving action right now of 50,000 gulls hitting the surface and the water churning. That's not what's happening. But the fishing, the catching right now is honestly, if you know the program, is better than that sometimes, because that can be sporadic. When, you know, the topwater stuff, when they're blowing up, when you can see them, you know, they may be up for a little bit and then they're gone. But these, you get in these areas, I mean, we stayed in that this was last year, and I am so looking forward to our next run here. I'll check the calendar. I think it's this coming week. But anyway, catching them like that. And then what happened last year, we caught a bunch, and then I think we got into a little rain, which didn't melt us. We were a bunch of old, old hardcore people, but we got a little rain, didn't hurt anything. And then going back in, there's a shelf there that come up out of the channel, and by golly, it was actually a little light mist, like you mentioned. And a little ripple on the water, and those stripers, this was back by not far from the marina. We got in them again, and it was as good as it was at the first light, Bill. So the crowd cover. Yeah, you remember, I know you remember that. Yeah.
I just remember Chris stopped on a school of sand bass, and striper moved in, knocked the sand bass off, and I remember that. I don't think I've ever done that since then.
Yeah, wow. It was. We caught some. I remember that one like yes, and we filmed it. Jeff filmed that thing for a past show. Yeah. Folks, you can go back to YouTube. They're all archived on YouTube. Carbon TV gets a lot of people watch it there. CarbonTV.com, and just look for A Sportsman's Life. But you can look back right now and go back to, you'll see Striper Express. Go back and look at some of these shows. And that's exactly. It's not like it happened just that one time. It's a yearly event, isn't it, Bill? You know, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. We will book May before we fill up March and April, with anticipation of this early morning topwater. We all love it, and then that surfacing action he's talking about, folks, is late June, mid-June, and all of July. That's when you have the big schools that are splashing out on the main lake and splashing. But this is blind casting. We call it Rambo fishing. It's a lot of fun.
It is. The thing is, the pattern is not really, it happens on all lakes. The fact is, all lakes are not Lake Texoma. All lakes don't have a ton of stripers. Most of them don't. But the same pattern happens at, say, Tawakoni or any lake. Early morning, the shad are up there. And Bill Dance told me, I used to think the wave action, you fish a windy bank, you're in a gold country right there. It's good.
That's right.
But
That's right.
I used to think, well, the wind pushes them. I remember in an interview with Bill, he says, Luke, here's the deal. Everybody says the wind pushes the shad up on the bank. That's not what happens. He said they're up there spawning at night, and there's zooplankton. They have to eat little minute particles off the vegetation, zooplankton, So that's why the shad are there. But if you're in an area where the wind is blowing into the bank, it's blowing the vegetation in, thus, But it happens with catfish. Like at Lake Lavon. My nephew Billy Kilpatrick, an old, you and Billy are friends. He guided for crappie for years at Lavon, and he lived right on the lake. I'd get out there, and he'd say, "Uncle Luke, get on out here with me, man, because they're running." So we'd catch blue catfish, sand bass, no stripers, of course, because there are no stripers. But yeah, that's a pattern that the stripers they have to eat too, so they've picked up on that. Just kind of a lot more fun to catch those little big stripers, when they're shallow.
Oh man, it's nothing. It's just a hoot. And folks, you cast that big plug out there, and we have whopper ploppers, and our sponsor Berkeley is called Chapo. Luke and I call it El Chapo.
El Chapo. Yeah, I want to tell you what El Chapo is. That thing is like a little paddle wheel when you get it out there.
Oh my goodness!
You hear it going when it's clicking along the surface, and when they blow up on that thing. Bill, this is going to sound very elementary to you, but explain fishing a topwater plug. Your favorite is a pencil popper.
Yeah,
and I do. They've caught more stripers and largemouth probably than any topwater. But explain how you work. Just to say a pencil popper. Let's stick with that.
Okay.
How you pulled up and you're in an area where there's going to be fish. How do you actually fish it?
Yeah, I've taught I got it for 25 years, and I would, before we left the harbor, I would show them. I said, I want to show you what we're doing today. Roll it up, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Don't try and throw it over the moon. You can throw a pencil popper a mile. And I said, now watch my hands first. and I'm reeling and popping at the same time, reeling and popping, reeling and popping. Same time, don't stop. Now, I want to tell you, that whopper plop, that El Chapo that Luke is talking about is just a steady retrieve, and it's a paddle wheel, and it's a fish catching machine. That's the best topwater bait I've seen come out in a long time.
You know, Bill.
Maybe ever.
Yeah, yes, sir. I like, and probably for your, the guys that come out and ladies that don't fish a lot. It's not rocket science. Throw it out there, hold the rod tip up, and just crank.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the miss. If the fish misses your plug, he comes up there and he thinks that's a crippled shad on the surface, and he hits that bait, but he misses it. You gotta you'll pull it away from him one time before you learn. You stop and tighten your line and just twitch your tip. And if you move it a foot, it'll rattle those baits and it'll go boom. That fish is on then. He'll find it. He'll find it.
I'm getting excited just thinking about our upcoming trip, man. Just talking about it. And here's. We're about out of time for a segment, but here's the trick. As long as that topwater bait is in the water, I'm talking about if it's banging the side of the boat, you're still fishing. And you subject to a striper nail that thing. I've seen it, and I know you've seen it a million times, right at the boat. Wham! And hit the
I tell them, anytime that plug's in the water, you're in the strike zone.
Well, Bill, StriperExpress.com. Y'all are not hard to find, but Facebook, if they want to, go online first, folks, and check out the StriperExpress.com. Check them out. A really good website. And then if they want to call you, Bill, how do they do that?
All right, folks, you can call us at 903-786-4477. That's 903-786-4477.
All right, Bill, I'm looking forward. I think it's about middle of next week. I'll check the calendar. Looking forward to getting with you, buddy.
Come on running.
Folks, I want to tell you about an awesome destination for camping, just a getaway place, some very good fishing up on the upper end of Lake Livingston. It's River Rat Resort. You can go online to riverratresort.com. Check it all out. It's an awesome website there, but there's RV sites for RVs. There's tent camping right on the river, cabins there. It is a beautiful park, and I fished down in that area for many, many years. I probably first started fishing there 30 years ago, but you can fish the river. Lake Livingston is a well-known fishing lake. If you don't like to fish, which I bet you do, but if you don't, it's a great place just to get away from the hustle bustle of the big city. You can call 936-277-5495. That's 936-277-5495 and make reservations. But first, go online there to riverratresort.com. Check it out. I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultrimatic Feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultrimatic Feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder. And then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultrimatic Feeders, you could go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokintex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com. Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, our next guest is Mr. Demetrio Rubio. Now, he's the director for the Mule Deer Foundation, which is a big organization all about mule deer. We had Demetrio on with us a few weeks ago, but guess what? He's back. Demetrio, I know you're a busy man setting up these chapters for the Mule Deer Foundation all over the state, but thanks for being back with us.
Thank you for having me, sir.
I had a lot of positive input, a lot of emails when you were with us before, and mule deer hunting in Texas, granted, it's not like whitetails in just about every county, but there's a lot of mule deer in the Texas Panhandle and out in the Trans-Pecos area out there. But I guess just because they're not as widespread as whitetail, sometimes a lot of people just don't travel out west. But there's some awesome hunting. I've hunted desert mule deer and in the Panhandle too. I don't want to sound like an expert. I'm not, but I've really relished the times that I've had out there, and it's just something special about hunting those big old deer in that wild country, Demetrio.
Yes, sir.
Well, do you think that the body size on mule deer does it differ much from the Panhandle to the Trans-Pecos? The desert mule deer. I'm not a biologist, and I know you're not either, but you know a lot about mule deer. Makes me wonder if maybe the Rocky Mountain mule deer strain is not more prevalent out there in the Panhandle.
Yes, sir. I think that the mule deer in that area, and I've seen pictures of them that people post on social media showing what kind of mule deer that they're harvested in the Texas Panhandle compared to what we harvest in the Trans-Pecos area. Their body size may somehow be a little bit bigger, so I don't know if that's some of the northern New Mexico, Colorado mule deer migrating, or but I know that our desert mule deer here in West Texas, we have some that look like monster antlers with small body size.
Yeah, it's weird. What would a big bodied Trans-Pecos? I know that's where you're out of Fort Stockton there, I believe, but what would a big bodied mature buck there weigh on the hoof, would you guess?
On the hoof?
Yep.
Oh, probably 220.
Yeah.
Probably about 220. Yeah, that's what I've experienced with. Of course, I've had some that have been about 150 pounders on the hoof.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I killed up there on Clayton Williams's ranch, which is not far from Fort Stockton. I was invited there by Mr. Paul Henderson years ago, probably 28 years ago, long time, and I shot the biggest one I've ever killed, and I think he was right around, just a little over 200 pounds, but big old mature buck. Well, I want to make the most of our time, Demetrio, and what you do is go around, and your job is to start new chapters for the Mule Deer Foundation. And I want to make sure that everybody listening on all our great radio stations, and there's a bunch in the Texas Panhandle now, that everybody knows that you can be contacted, and you're a source for information about the Mule Deer Foundation. If somebody wanted to start a new chapter, you're the person out to talk to,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I will be. It's myself and Todd Ward. He's Central Texas. I've got like I mentioned before, I've got the Texas Panhandle, Western Texas, and South Texas. Mm-hmm. Anybody who wants to start a new chapter, I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about what we do. Our main focus is fundraising, events, banquet events, a good barbecue dinner, live auction, silent auction, some bucket raffle games, and raise conservation dollars. But I have started several chapters in the state of Texas, and we're still growing. And I've gotten phone calls from South Texas that they want me to go down there. I will be headed down to South Texas to McAllen this summer to kind of preach the word of mule deer down there. And but I've got more that I have started here in Western Texas, and but it's just Texas is such a huge state that's why they need 2 regional directors, because I was doing it by myself.
Yeah.
And I needed help because I also have New Mexico. But yeah, to start a chapter, you can always email me at demetro@muledeer.org, or they can always call my personal cell phone number, which is on my business card. That's 432-290-4563. And I will answer any questions that and see about holding an organizational meeting. I drive to like this week I'm going back to Lubbock and Amarillo, which they used to have chapters. I think after 2019, after COVID, they just didn't start back up.
Yep.
But I'm going to go back and restart them with some people that I know and that I've known as friends for a long time that have supported me in the past. And we're restarting those chapters. I'll be up there next week visiting with them and putting all the details together, finding a location, finding a caterer, auctioneer. I love to use the wildlife biology students. I don't care if they're in high school, 4-H, or they're in college. I use them so that way they can get some credits and help us out with some of these mule deer conservation projects that we're putting on the ground, and with and that way they get the learning experience as to what we do, how we obtain the funds that are going to go on the ground that they're going to be working on.
Demetrio, say the foundation gathers resources, gathers dollars. Well, it goes directly, a lot of that goes right to benefit the mule deer in probably a lot of different ways, and probably not only public lands, but maybe private lands also. I'm not sure about it. Yeah?
Yes, sir. We do both, and whatever I raise in the state of Texas stays in the state of Texas. That's why I love this job so much, because I've been doing it for 12 years. We do have there's 2 categories, public and private. Public, of course, wildlife management areas, whatever projects that they have for any of the wildlife management areas, it's matched 3-1 by the Pittman Robertson Fund. So
awesome.
if it's private, we just work with the private landowner. A lot of people think that we don't do private land work. Yes, we do. All we've got to do is have them contact me for the state of Texas, and we figure a plan out. We put a plan together. We do water guzzlers, we brush removal, wildlife friendly fences, anything for the private landowner as well. That way, they know that we're here for them as well, not just for public. With the private land, we go half and half on the project.
I see. That is a huge plus right there. And
yes, sir.
And the guzzlers, I know Texas is a thirsty state, and West Texas and all out that country is definitely a thirsty state. So guzzler water is key. I mean, say a guy had 1,000 acres. I mean, if there's no water on it, he may have some, transient mule deer. But I mean, you do. I bet that's a big part, is supplying water, right? Yeah. I would
yes,
guess.
sir. I've helped approve projects on such small property. It doesn't matter, as long as we can show that there is mule deer present on the property, then we're working on it.
Well, yeah, because you could have 100 acres or 50 acres with a water source there, and it's going to draw the deer from all around, I would guess.
Yes, sir. And not only does the mule deer benefit, other species benefit as well.
Our friend Larry Weissoon we do a lot together. Larry's been on this show. He was on earlier previous to you being here today, But he's talking about, when he's speaking, talks about butterflies, in groups where people are hunters and some are not hunters. And the non-hunters say, wait a minute, butterflies, how does hunting help butterflies? What you just brought up, the fact of water. I mean, yeah, so everything benefits. I mean,
yes, sir.
The Mule Deer Foundation help support some guzzlers, which is a drinking fountain in a way for wildlife. It benefits the whole ecosystem. That's interesting stuff, Demetrio. It really is.
And one thing that I want the public to know is, if they're interested in hosting, of course I do all the work, but if they're interested in hosting an event and starting a new chapter, you don't have to have mule deer around.
Yeah.
It's like in East Texas, South Texas. That's the first question they ask me is, why do you want to start a banquet here if we have no mule deer? I said, well, because you have mule deer hunters.
Yeah,
here.
You bet.
And you have wildlife photographers. It doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're the interest. It's the interest is there just to have a banquet, because we're all conservationists.
That's it.
And all they got to do is contact me at that email address I provided and my personal cell phone, and we'll get to work.
We're going to leave that phone number again too.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I think I have it, 432-290-4563.
Yes, sir. That is my personal cell phone.
People can give you a call. And friends, also, as I often say in this show, we're not I don't try to be a news show. It's really just people interacting and sharing ideas and information. But you can always contact me, and Demetrio's a friend. I can hook you up with him. But just go to catfishradio.org. That's the radio website, and just email Luke. My contact is there. I promise you that I'll get you with Mr. Demetrio or whoever we might be visiting with. Well, Demetrio, I bet you've got new chapters to form and people to talk to, and I do appreciate you taking a little time to be back with us. And from time to time, I certainly want to get you on a mule deer or a passion of mine. I guided elk and bear hunts in northern Colorado up until about 6 years ago. 7. I got too old for it. I could still do it, but I paid the price. We did not hunt mule deer on this ranch. We leased a ranch. Another guy and I did outfitted archery hunts. But there was some big old mule deer. Those deer almost drove me nuts, because we'd be elk hunting. There'd be a 160, 180, 200-inch mule deer buck out there, big ones. Yeah, I had the privilege of watching them up close. Thanks a lot for being with us, Demetrio. We'll get you back soon. How about it?
You got it, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use, you can check them out online too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas, and VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net.
Well, friends, it's your old buddy Luke Clayton. I am back with you. We've had a pretty awesome show today, I think. What do you think? Everything from mule deer out in the Trans-Pecos and the Panhandle, Mr. Demetrio Rubio, Bill Carey talking about stripers, catching topwater stripers up there, Mr. Wysoon with us. I mean, all in all, I think we've had a pretty well-rounded show. But I want to talk to you now about using thermal scopes for hunting. Now, I want to put a disclaimer out. I am not a thermal scope expert, but I have been using thermal scopes for years, probably, 6 years or so, maybe a little longer than that with some of the early models way back there. But AGM Global Vision, I want to talk to you about some of their scopes. They're the ones that I use. The Rattler, and I use them mostly for hog hunting. I've been using the Rattlers for several years. That's, in my opinion, that's my favorite scope for hunting hogs. I do use the Adder also. It's I also hunt coyotes. That's not all I do. Hunt predators. I hunt hogs a lot, but I use the the Adder for a little bit more long range shooting. But let's focus and keep this very basic about what you might need if you want to get a thermal scope. I have a lot of buddies that tell me, Luke, I'd like a thermal scope, but those things cost thousands of dollars. And I'll ask them, I'll say, well, what do you want to do with, what type of hunting do you want to do? And they'll say, well, I'm going to be shooting hogs. And I say, well, how are you going to be hunting hogs? Over a feeder at night? Are you going to stalk up close to them at night? If so, I've got a Rattler I want to tell you about. And they'll say, no, I want to mount one on an AR, and I want to shoot running hogs at 200 yards at night. Okay, well, I can still talk to you about that. You're going to need a different Rattler. And when I tell them that they can buy a Rattler V2 for less than, $800, give or take, I'm not real sure what, you can shop around for them, but the Rattler V2, the 19 by 256, for very few dollars. I mean, that's a substantial cash outlay, but it's not like $3,000 like they think they're going to have to pay. So they'll say, okay, this 19 by 256 Rattler V2, Luke, what will it do? Can I shoot running hogs out there at 150 yards? No, that's not what it's made for at all. And if they'll ask me, well, can I see a hog at 50 to 75, maybe 100 yards clearly at night and make the shot? Absolutely, you can. So that opens up the affordability to a whole bunch of people. The fact that for $800, give or take, you can actually buy a quality thermal scope to put on your rifle. Now, this is not the scope that you would want to put on an AR, obviously, because you're going to be able to identify clearly out at 75, 100 yards. I don't really farther than that, but I wouldn't want to push the envelope. 100 yards, I have no problem with. I've got one. Actually, I have one mounted on a Seneca Dragon Claw 50 caliber air gun that I hunt with a lot. And my whole goal on hog hunting is getting up close. I want to see those hogs. And I really don't want to, that's not me, and I'm not knocking shooting hogs at a distance at night, but that's just not what I do. I want to be up close. I want to I want to hear them coming in, or I want to spot hogs now and stalk. Now, and I do that a lot with this. And you could, granted, I have this one mounted on a big bore PCP air rifle, and I've killed a bunch of hogs with it, but you could also mount it on your any rifle that's got a Picatinny rail, or you can put one on just about any rifle. So it doesn't have to be an AR to hunt hogs at night or during the day, for that matter. Now, also, this particular, a good thermal scope doesn't have to be just a night scope. That heat signature is going to jump out and get you during the daytime. You're going to be able to identify hogs. So I'm actually, this coming week, I'm heading up to the Choctaw Hunting Lodge to meet with Larry Wysoon and Jeff Rice. We're going to film one of our TV shows, and I'm going to be using a thermal scope during the day to hunt these the Choctaw mule-footed hogs. I've killed one. We're going to go up there and try to get another one of those for my buddy Jeff Rice, who's the producer of our TV show, A Sportsman's Life, that Jeff and I and Larry Weiss soon do together. But what I'm getting at, I wanted to keep this basic information for people. I'm going to be using that rattler on that hunt, and we're probably going to shoot a hog during the daylight. That's some big old 45,000 acre mountain country up there, and there's some feeders where the only people that's been around them lately is once a month people, they go up and put corn in them. So their hogs are coming during the daylight. You can use a thermal scope for that too. Okay, so that's your 19 by 256. You could jump up to 320 by 256. In other words, for $800, you can get a scope that you can shoot hogs at 100 yards with. I promise you, the AGM Global Vision Rattler V2. Now, you might want more scope than that. You might want to put one on an AR, and you might want to identify hogs out to 200 yards, whatever. You can spend more. You can spend $2,500 and get a rattler that you could put on any, or a little less money than that, really. But if you're really looking into it, what I'd advise you to do with this knowledge that I've just shared with you, you can get going and hunt hogs or any critters at night up within 75, 100 yards for less than $1,000. That particular scope, that 19 by 256, will not do what one $2,000 scope would do out at a range, a distance, but they're quite ample for what I'm telling you about. So just go online and really check them out. AGM Global Vision has an awesome website with a lot of information. Go there, look them over, check them over real close, do your homework. And you can watch the videos there, and it'll give you a real good idea what these things will do. One other thing I will tell you, now, once you get into night hunting with a thermal, you're going to quickly learn that it's pitch dark out there, folks. Unless there's a big full moon, you're not going to be able to see much in the dark. To see, you're going to have to put that rifle up to your eye, put your scope up to your eye, and start looking, scanning with it. That gets a little tiresome. It really does, especially if you're in a stand looking around. You might look up in a tree and see a barred owl or whatever, mouse running underneath a feeder. You'll be wanting to look at everything. A monocular is worth its weight in gold. AGM has you can get one for, I don't know, $550, $600, a Taipan 256, and that will save you a lot of, a lot of strain of holding that rifle and scope up to your eye. So do consider look at the monoculars while you're on the AGM Global Vision website there, and look at your Taipan. I think the 256 you can get that for around $550. I'm not really sure of the exact cost, but there's not a whole lot. But think about it, the Rattler V2 19 by 256 and the Taipan, the 256 for $650, $1,500, you could have a monocular and a thermal scope. Just some tips that might help you. Folks, we are out of time for today's show. I have thoroughly enjoyed all of you. I want to thank all of our radio stations. After this is aired on all these fine stations, it becomes a podcast. It's everywhere. Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends. So thanks to everybody involved with this. I look forward to being back with you next week. Probably have some hunting tales from the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma next week. Be safe out there, folks, and I'll be right back here with you next week with some more fun outdoor talk. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.